Audio Jungle.
What if Eve was the first person on earth? What if the first evolution that ever happened was that of a woman? I don't mean to anger the Christians or the evolutionists, but we all know how much history likes to erase women. And in modern day history, we barely know of women who are leaders who have helped to craft the world that we live in today. And yet, there are many brilliant and wonderful, phenomenal women, the likes of the Queen Mother Nanaya Asantewa of Ghana, Al-Kahina of Algeria, and Giza of Angola, all who valiantly led African resistance against foreign occupation. But very few of us know of those women. Mileva Einstein, does anyone know of that brilliant scientist? One. And she was a physicist married to Albert Einstein. And it has been said that they co-authored several papers, and she contributed significantly to his groundbreaking science. But because of the prevalent bias that existed during that time, any paper that was co-authored by a woman and co-signed would have carried less weight. So history forgot her. And in the present time, just a few weeks ago, we attempted to erase another woman from history, the only second female to win a Nobel Prize award in economics. Esther Duflo's Nobel laureate success was credited to her husband. And she was cited in several publications as the wife of, even though she was the lead in this award-winning paper. Still in the present, we all know and love Mom Gracia Machel, a revolutionary hero, fought for the independence of Mozambique, minister at the age of 30, and yet our history just wants us to remember that she was married to 2 presidents. What a narrative. And back home in Botswana, I am a diamond baby. And that means I was born in a government hospital, I went to a government school, I went to university through a government scholarship, all benefit from diamond dividends. And the landmark agreement that saw Botswana owning its diamonds and reinvesting in its people was the brains of a certain Dr. Chiepe. And she is popularly known as the first woman MP, the first woman cabinet minister, but very few diamond babies actually know that she is responsible. Her leadership and wisdom were the reasons why we are diamond babies. So, what if all these women were laying out a foundation for a woman era? An era, a period of memorable women rising. An era of increased women participation in decision-making and innovation, as well as groundbreaking actions and economic development. And if that was the case, then how do we ensure that those women who are presently making history in this woman era do not go forgotten? How do we ensure that this woman era doesn't fizzle out on our watch? And just in case you have doubts, that we may be well living within this woman era, I can just remind you that today, more than ever, we have more publicly and active women in leadership and decision-making than ever before. And I know it's easy for me and for you to list a string of women who are phenomenal and changing the world that we live in. We have young women, the likes of Jayathma, who's the youth envoy to the UN. We have Ilwad Elman, who's a social and human rights activist in Somalia. Fatma Samura, who's the first Secretary General of FIFA. And of course, Her Excellency, the President, Sahle-Work Zewde, the first woman president of Ethiopia, and only one of a handful of Africa's female presidents. Just a small list, but we've met many, and there are a million more that we are yet to meet. The woman era. And for my story, up until a month ago, I was the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry. I was proud to serve my country, Botswana, and I served for one term, and during my tenure, I was the youngest member in the 11th Parliament. I was the youngest woman member of Botswana's parliament in history, and I was the youngest woman member of cabinet in Botswana's history. And some went as far as to say that during my tenure, I was the youngest cabinet minister in Africa. It's debatable. And as I packed up my office, I received an avalanche of messages. And these were people who were wishing me well, and there was one message in particular that stood out to me, and it read, "You gave your best. We saw your sweat. We felt your passion, and I hope history judges you kindly." And that message really got me thinking. If I was to drop dead tomorrow, how will history judge me? Will I even appear in the history books? Will I appear for having tried so hard to increase local productive capacity, for lending my voice to inclusivity in the digital era, for talking about inclusivity in economic development, for lending my voice to women and children's rights in the national stage? Or most importantly, what I would care about, that I allowed those who come after me to dream and dream beyond bounds. And as I met a young lady a few weeks ago, she said, though I may not believe that I am the first youngest woman minister, I am certainly her first. And she reminded me that all of us are someone's first, and that we should really be happy when we are able to strengthen or change one's dreams. And this really resonated with me from an article of 2009, where I stated that at the end of the day, I just asked myself a simple question. Did I do just one act that made someone's day easier? And did I do just one thing that just would ensure that those who come after me, their journeys are less onerous? Because that was and remains my motivation. And in my drive to secure my future and that of others, you can just imagine the kind of challenges and obstacles that I have faced. But those, I can assure you, have not been deterrents. And though I may be her first, I know for sure that I'm not the first, because there are many women who have leaned over and allowed me to stand tall on their shoulders. So I'm hoping that today I will be able to inspire you with just 3 things and strengthen and bolden your shoulders so that you allow others to stand tall on those as well. And those 3 things, number 1 is that you heal your spaces of female claustrophobia. And the notion of female claustrophobia is where you just get so enraged when someone new comes into your spaces of influence. You just feel they are intruders, outliers that are trying to claim your space. And you do not want to encourage ambition. Instead, you see it as a threat. So I'm saying let's heal ourselves of female claustrophobia. And then the second challenge is that you become she specialists. Support, help, elevate. She specialists. Ensure that when someone rises, you are there to support them, you are there to help them, and you want to ensure that they elevate to a higher position. She specialist, and not a pull her down specialist, PhD. And the third one is that you become activists and you become mentors. And being an activist is not about standing on top of that soapbox. It is about standing for something or risk dying for nothing. Standing for something such as advocating for equal pay, ensuring that you're not the only woman in the boardroom, and just extending your hand to help someone to ensure that they too rise and find their rightful place at the table. Be a mentor, because the only way we will ensure that this woman era lasts is if we invest in one another. And so, as I conclude, I would like for you to just close your eyes for a second and imagine the Statue of Liberty that is made up of women Legos standing tall on top of one another. Imagine this towering figure that is made up of bold and brilliant women, elevated, professional, hardworking, nurturing women. Imagine this non-withering figure that will stand the test of time, because that is what I picture every time I speak of a woman era. And I know that this can be a reality when we realize that we are stronger together. And I know that we are a bold and brilliant generation, but I pray that it is, and that we become a generation that is more nurturing, a generation that reimagines history, one that invests in its future so that we can create a womanly history. And most importantly, ensure that we continue to live and create an unforgettable woman era. Thank you.